Hello, everyone. My name is Reisa Berg. I am a high school social worker, and I'm also a clinician with Gooding Wellness, which is a team of therapists in Cold Spring Harbor. In honor of Red Ribbon Week, I wanted to share with you some information about marijuana. Marijuana refers to dried leaves, flowers, and stems from the cannabis sativa and cannabis indica plant. Marijuana is a psychoactive drug with its main psychoactive ingredient, or the thing that gets you high, being THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, a mind-altering compound. And basically, there are many different ways of using marijuana, from hand-rolled cigarettes, blunts, pipes, and more recently, dabs and vaping. And it's important to note that the method in which you use the marijuana can impact the amount of THC received. We in the treatment world are finding that most people's perception of how harmful marijuana can be is actually declining, with many young people considering marijuana to not be as much of a risky behavior as we've seen in the past. And the reason that we find this interesting is that while the perception of risk has weakened, the reality is that the potency of marijuana seized in the United States more than doubled in the last 20 years. And the reason that we know this is the National Institute of Drug Abuse works with governmental agencies to test strains of marijuana that are being seized. So what we found is that the psychoactive ingredient, or THC, has actually increased tremendously over the past years. In 1995, the average amount of THC seized in marijuana was around 3%. And then in 2005, it was about 8%. By 2016, the THC potency was around 13%. And that number continues to climb today. We also know that there are a number of boutique growers that are producing strains upwards of 30%. So why does this matter? Well, this means that this is a very different type of marijuana that might have been available or in circulation when your parents were in high school. So this is a very, very different drug and a much more potent drug. And why does that matter? Well, when we talk about what makes something addictive, there are really two components according to the DSM. And the two things that qualify something as addictive would be tolerance and withdrawal. And tolerance is essentially just needing more and more of something to feel the same effect. So perhaps the first time someone used marijuana, they took one or two hits and they felt that feeling. If they continue that pattern over time, eventually one or two hits is not going to be enough to feel the same effect. Then they might need 4 to 6 or 5 to 10. And as time goes on, we need more and more to feel the same effect. So if we're starting off with a much more potent drug, that trajectory takes us much further, in a much more dangerous place, in a riskier place, quicker than ever before. The other piece is the withdrawal. We know that marijuana affects parts of the brain that influence pleasure, mood, pain, and appetite. So when we're talking about withdrawal, we're not necessarily talking about life or death, but we are talking about changes in mood, trouble sleeping or oversleeping, trouble eating or overeating. So we're seeing different changes in how someone's activities of daily living are impacted. Marijuana also impacts our prefrontal cortex, which allows us to interpret data. This is why safe driving is not possible when we're using marijuana. Things like judgment, coordination, reaction time, they all can be impacted. So this makes it hard to judge distances, react to signals and sounds on the road as quickly. So with any psychoactive drug, even beyond marijuana, impaired driving is not a good idea and can cause deadly crashes. So how do you know if you have a problem with marijuana? You know, we always talk about gateway drugs, and a gateway drug does not mean that if you try this, you will go on to using other drugs. Of course, that's not what it means. But what it does mean is that for people who have gone on to using other drugs, most of them started with alcohol, marijuana, and nicotine. And so if you're worried about yourself or a friend, there are some things that we look at. There are some areas in our life that we explore to see if this is problematic for us. And the 6 areas are outlined by the DSM. And the first one is physical or health. So as I mentioned before, if you struggle with eating or sleeping as a result of your marijuana use, maybe you can't fall asleep without smoking marijuana, or maybe your eating is impacted if you're using or not using marijuana. That could be a sign that something has gone too far, that you need the drug in order for those things to be effective. Another thing that could be a sign is just emotional or psychological. So maybe you're a little bit irritable without it, or maybe you feel like you need it to go to a party or to mask any fears that you have. So that might be a sign that, okay, maybe this is something that I need to explore further. Another thing is how it impacts our interpersonal relationships, our relationships with friends and family. If every time someone uses marijuana, they get in a fight with their girlfriend, boyfriend, mom, or dad, that might be a sign that something's not working well. Another thing could be educational or vocational, so school or work. So are you missing school to smoke weed? Are you maybe not putting as much effort in as you used to into your schoolwork? You don't care as much. That could be a sign that something's maybe needs to be explored further. The next one would be financial. So this would be something like every time you get paid, that money goes towards buying more marijuana. It could be you owe people money because of marijuana, or you end up stealing money from someone to buy marijuana. So anything with finances that's not going great, another reason to explore further. And the last one is craving. And craving is exactly what it sounds like. Craving is those obsessive thoughts. Craving is also misguided thoughts. So I always say, listen to the difference between these 2 sentences. I like to go out with my friends, we have fun, we watch movies, and we smoke weed. Or I can't have fun with my friends unless we're smoking weed, right? And it's a real big difference between the 2 statements. So if any of those things resonate with you about yourself, about a friend, and you want to talk to someone further, there is no shame in asking for help. There are so many people available to you in your school and resources all over Long Island that are here to talk to you and help you and figure out if there's anything that you do need to change or think about differently. So please don't hesitate to reach out to someone if you need some help. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of Red Ribbon Week.